I'm going to be talking about moving from startup. We're a direct primary care business in Moscow, Idaho. We've been in business since 2018. We've grown tremendously, and that's been both full of promise and heartache, ups and downs, challenges, and great. So we'll talk a bit about that. So this is part of my staff. This is the wonderful 4th of July parade that we get to be in. I think this is a couple years back. That's Dr. Bones sitting up there with his arm around my son, one of our mascots in our clinic. People always wonder, why a skeleton, and are you advertising that kind of care? Well, not really, just the joy of it, teaching people about their bodies. So I'm in family medicine. Been graduated in 2005. Loved. I went to med school. This is what I wanted to do. I grew up with a small town family doc, and he inspired me. And I was like, that's what I want to be. I want to be full spectrum, small town, doing it all, cradle to grave, caring for people. This is what my kids remember from my first stint in family medicine, which is a bucket of charts that I took home every day and did between 8 and 10 p.m. or 4 a.m. the next day, usually 20, 30, 40 charts, just trying to catch up from the day. I left after 3.5 years, burnt out, burnt hard. It was really a big disappointment. So when I talk about direct primary care, it's with this in not too distant of a memory. Direct primary care is something that we stumbled upon when we realized we need to do something different. So as I mentioned, I was a hospital physician. That was my bounce back plan. I worked in the ER as well. Loved it. But my job changed in 2017, and I was kind of shown the exit. It was really a surprise to me because I had been in a marvelous staff and even awarded for excellence in my job, and then realized didn't fit there anymore. So wanted to stay in the same community. How do I do that? And direct primary care is what I came across. Direct primary care. It's basically membership. In Idaho and a lot of other states, it's a legal description of just a simple conversation, which is instead of insurance and other companies being involved in the way that we interact with patients, it's doctor to patient, patient to doctor. It's community. And it's very, for us, hyper-local. So we're about caring for people that we live in community with, and they're about caring for us. This is Jenny and I. She's my chief financial officer. We like those initials, when you're in a small CFO and CEO. But this is how we started CEO and CFO. This is attached to my house. That was our first clinic. Because we were looking for something to start with. We were looking for a way to stay in the community and serve. And we were looking for a way to do direct primary care or do family medicine, but in a way that was very, very different. And this is what we started with. That's the room. It's actually a converted bedroom. People really were kind to us. We started off with almost 400 patients in our community that said, hey, we heard about the transition from working in the hospital. We are also looking for a doctor who is able to help us find transparency in medicine, who is available. It takes weeks to months to get in with a doctor who has the time to actually sit with us and talk to us about good medical care, who's just gonna walk with us, and who we know, who lives in community with us. That's a borrowed table. It's actually from a veterinary clinic that someone had picked up at a wholesale. They were like, it was actually a neighbor of mine. I said, what's that doing behind your house? And he said, well, I don't know. I just bought it. It was $50. So we polished it up, and that's what we started with. And you can see my Craftsman there. Yeah, that's all tools. But what we discovered is that the care of medicine really comes down, the best care of medicine comes down to time and professional attention and a heart that really cares for people. Well, I have that in abundance. I've been really well trained, and I love being able to care for people when I had plenty of time. And what do you know? People responded to that, and that's been a real blessing. So we quickly outgrew that, and this is what we ended up doing. Buying a ramshackle little house, tearing it down. I did most of that with some help from friends. And we turned it into a 2-bedroom, a 2-office place. We thought we're going to be in this. This is it. This is where we're going to be for the rest of our career. And we realized quickly that we needed help. Being a solo family doctor is great for a lot of people, and I loved it. I mean, you don't have a boss, right? That was the first big thing about direct primary care, is being able to actually give care in the way that you are trained, with the excellence that you know you can give in the way that you want to. And to be able to do it in a way that you're then responding to people as they give needs and say, hey, how about this? Or can you help me walk through this? Marvelous. But it was hard for me to take vacations. our patient panel was very kind to us and said, yeah, go away. We'll just go to the ER or something. But I'm not that kind of doc. It's hard for me to hang it up and not pick up the phone. So we had a nurse practitioner walk in. Just off the street, she said, hey, I heard about you. I'm out for a run. What are you doing? And this was a big help to us. She came on part-time. She was a mom. This breaks a little bit of DPC rules. A lot of us are talking physicians, and I understand that. But this is what came to us. And so we've had a mix of APPs and physicians as we move forward. And I'm happy to talk about that. This is our growth. We've actually had crazy growth, and it's been a bit of a hang on by your fingers, and now we've matured through it. But through this process, we now care for about 3,100 people in our community. This is a pretty large practice for a town of 28,000. We love what we get to do, and I think in large part because we've had excellent providers and physicians in a structure that lets us do what we do best in a way that's financially thoughtful and accessible to people, we've been able to grow. And that growth has been word of mouth almost entirely. Not a lot of advertising, mostly Google reviews when we've asked for them, and people have been very kind to give them. So my talk today is about the growing pains, because when we started off, people were very generous. In the direct primary care world, and it's so unusual, people offered help. They offered, hey, sit down, I'm gonna tell you my experience. And I hope that many of you that are in DPC have had the same experience, where people have said, yeah, this is how I bootstrapped it. This is where I got my instruments. This is how we structured our payments. This is how we chose to do what we did or not do. But how do you move, if you feel like growth is where you're at or it's being given to you, how do you grow? And including some other things, how do you add providers? How do you build a staff to be able to serve you, especially in a DPC world? It's really different and really broken from, or free, maybe is a better way to say it, from the insurance world, where you don't have to have billers and coders or an office full of administrators trying to keep people from bugging you, but you're actually working the opposite direction. And then we'll talk a little bit about services and how to figure out what to add and when, and then some of the, just where do we go with this? How do we keep the big vision of what DPC is? You probably heard this quote. This is said a lot in DPC world. Have you seen one DPC? So this is my disclaimer. We're just gonna offer our very hyper-local experience, but we've also kind of grown in wisdom as we've shared with other business leaders in our community, heard from them on how to care for our staff, learned a few things mostly by doing it wrong, and then kind of work in the other direction. The first question is, should you grow? A lot of DPC docs come to DPC and they're so they've been squeezed and put through a pressure cooker, and they just give me 300 patients, and I'll just live that way. And then they grow to 400, and they're like, and then they go to 500. Lord willing, that just they get blessed. Should you grow? We've tried not to grow at times. Really, because we recognize that there's a certain number of patients that's good for a doctor to care for, that the medical world is really pushed well beyond, which is healthy and good for the doctor and for the patient. We see that as we've kind of landed about 600 to 800 in our practice, because we have very large families, but that's not the same for every practice. But putting a limit on it, we found actually turned it out to be kind of a killer to our practice. So there's several times in our practice where we actually dipped when we put on a waiting list. A number of practices I think probably have tried, maybe your practice has. We've realized actually growth is part of a free market approach. It speaks to health. It speaks to things that are working and are good. And we want to encourage you, just like two of my grandsons here, leaning in. You want growth, and you're going to have periods of that. The growth also comes with challenges. A bit of that is nostalgia. Once you get used to that solo doc practice where you don't have a boss and you don't have any employees, that's actually kind of sweet, right? You don't have to boss anybody around except yourself, and you don't have to answer to anybody. But anytime you move beyond that, it's going to be a challenge. Let me talk about a few things that we did when we were small that we don't do anymore. We used to offer free service hot chocolate right in the middle of our waiting room. Anyone see any challenges that might come from that? Little kids with hot chocolate cups? We didn't have any burns, but we did have a lot of spills. This is my daughter, who, this is right in the middle of our first room, lining up just like Noah's Ark. Turned out that offering toys to play with was a messy business. We were washing those more than we were having them out. And we realized that the things that you often do when you're small that when you're caring for 300-400 patients, when you start scaling it up, can actually turn around and be a burr in your saddle, or it can be a misguided thing to do. So one of the things I often encourage practices that they're growing is just don't be afraid to reevaluate and say, hey, just because we did that before doesn't mean that's written into the stone or the foundation. This is one thing that we did when we were smaller. We advertised, text us anytime, and we will immediately respond. DPC has this kind of built in, and you'll see it. DPC is like this, wow, you can have direct access like a doctor in your pocket, 24/7, 365, unlimited. And we've seen practices really burn under that. We have, where we're offering something that is actually no one else in the world offers unlimited. Or if they do, then they're the buffet that is getting run into the ground. It's not humanly possible. We're all finite. So instead, we've encouraged people to develop good relationships, to teach your patients, to have good expectations. For us, what that means is we actually have gone the other direction. We encourage texting for quick questions. If it turns out that it's something that really needs to be seen medically, we're like, let's come in, let's get you in, let's have you right with a doctor, let's give you that professional, undivided attention, and let's do it today. Oh, but can't you just send me something in somewhere and I don't have to come in? We found that actually that's been less than satisfying care. And the more that we've moved, but for, of course, some of our earliest patients are like, oh, did something change? You used to be I could text you at 12:15 a.m. Yeah, we did change. So, good fences make good neighbors. It's a Robert Frost poem. If you haven't read it, it's a good one. Having clear expectations, and what we've actually gone to is a couple of other things. We're not unlimited in the number of visits we make. We've begun to kind of say, hey, this is what we can offer. And for our newest patients, they're like, what? 12 visits a year plus a 45-minute physical? That's amazing. For some of our other patients who were pushing 20 to 30 visits a year, they kind of said, wow, you're expensive. And we're like, well, we've $85 a month divided by 30. Wow, you were getting an amazing deal. We just couldn't sustain that. And that's, again, we're breaking some rules for DPC, but it's something as we've scaled, as we've grown, I would suggest that you might consider. Do we have some health share ministry people here today? Great. Yes, I think we have Samaritan and Christian Health Ministries. Great, thank you for joining us. If you guys are in DPC and you're not connecting with health share related people in your community, you are missing one of the most beneficial, two-way, synergistic relationships that could be, because these people are already members of something that's encouraging them to think outside the box when it comes to medically, to take responsibility for themselves, take responsibility and be aware of cost of medical care. What do you know? You're a DPC, that's what you talk, right? It's all about how do we be transparent and be straightforward. And they're the catastrophic that expects that the patient take responsibility for their day-to-day or their chronic. And you're the chronic, you're doing an excellent job in making sure that they're not going to the hospital for everything. It's such a great relationship. And about half of our members belong to health shares. It's been a really, really good place for us. We see a lot of DPCs that want to scale up or are struggling, not going or making connections or inroads to these. Now, many of them are religious affiliated, many of them are not. And we're seeing a real growth in that as well, that small businesses or families are recognizing that I can't keep up with the 25% year increases, I need to do something different. Those are three of the most common ones that we deal with. The other thing that membership, so you saw the 3,100, what you won't see necessarily behind the scenes is that actually over the 8.5 years that we've been in membership, we've lost more patients than we've retained. Now, not all of that is true because a fair number of those, I'm going to show you in a second, converted over from individual family memberships to business memberships. And that's been one of the biggest growths for us, is someone who was a family and said, wow, I could use this for caring for the people in my business, my employees. But I mean, we call that the churn, and that's real. People move, people transfer, people come and they say, well, I realize I need to go a different direction. And what we've learned, and I would encourage you on, is that's part of the bread making process. It's part of the business model, is both maintaining your membership and really blessing the people that you care for, but also recognizing people move and not to be discouraged when that happens. This is one of our businesses that we serve. We have 22 businesses now that we serve through business memberships, and that's been a significant growth for us. So you can see of that 3,100 that we care for, about 900 are business sponsored. So almost a third now in our small community. And those are mostly people in that kind of 8 to 50 employee range, because once you get to 50, it's there's a sudden federal pressure to do something different that we'll hope to talk more about today. But business and networking with businesses has become a substantial thing. For us, there's pluses and minuses of that. The plus is these are accounts that are paid by the same person, so you're not having to necessarily kind of go after families and say, hey, your credit card did you get a new one this month, or have families that suddenly have to drop, versus a business that says, hey, we pay for this, and this is amazing. Like, my employees get care, they know exactly where to go. When they go, they're gonna get the very best care, and they're gonna get cost-thoughtful care, and they're gonna get great direction if they have to go beyond you. No, slam dunk, especially if you're in a spot where you can't offer full-fledged coverage, which really, frankly, nobody can. Providers. I showed you our nurse practitioner that we started with, and we now have 2 part-time nurse practitioners, and that male to female synergy has been really great for our practice, just as we recognize that families have that dynamic where sometimes they really want the kindness of being able to visit with a gender-specific provider, and that's been great to be able to offer that. But we've also had a lot of providers come to us over the years as we've grown, and as the growth has happened, some of them have been from local, so 2 of our providers were in the community already, and one of them came from Canada. We were ready to get out of there during COVID, can you imagine? I did not realize how much I needed this. Being a hospitalist, I had lots and lots of conversations with specialists and other physicians, and that's very invigorating. It stimulates us. But being a solo doctor can get pretty lonely with your own thoughts. Up to date is pretty good, but it doesn't really talk back to you. And it's great to have doctors that you can be, hey, you're reading something, you're learning something, oh, you practice differently than me, why? And our goal is to build each other up, and it's been fantastic. Also, we attract different people. The guy, the tall one in the middle, he attracts old people in droves. They love this guy. I wish I had that attraction, but he has a bedside manner that man, I just can't do. He's just great, and I'm trying hard. The gentleman in the checkered shirt is our athletic trainer at our local schools. So he's bringing in lots of young families they call and they want an appointment with me, but then they say, oh, actually, can I get an appointment with the athletic trainer? And I'm like, I've done lots of sports med, but sure. It is one of the changes that we've developed over time, is that we have begun to kind of break down some of the walls. We actually take turns being the on-call doctor every day. It lets us actually book up a little bit better for our longer-term patients. Instead of trying to maintain some same-day visits, we actually have a pretty good schedule that our front office is super happy with, because it's easier for them to get in with us. Happy to talk with you more about how that looks. This is what we found. So when I brought these guys on, I was like, hey, come join me. You do your thing. I'll do mine, and we'll be synergistic. Not everybody wants to lead, and that's one of the challenges of bringing on other providers in your practice, is not everybody wants to jump in and take it. And in fact, you probably were the leader and are the leader because you're the risk taker, you're the starter, you're the one that put in the sweat equity and the blood, sweat, and tears as you did the startup. And people coming along often come along for other reasons. Most of our docs, they didn't come necessarily because they're driven for a free market. They just know they can't keep practicing in that other thing. For various reasons. And that's challenging. A couple of things that we've changed over the last few years. We went from a 60-40 sharing model of growth to now we've converted everybody to salary. And my wife and I were talking on the way up as we think about future growth. We would probably, now that we're established, have a little bit less risk on the behalf of the person joining us, but also bring them on kind of more in a salaried part-time position at first and encourage moonlighting, which is what most of our docs ended up doing anyways. And it's actually worked out pretty well. But we do find that we are stronger together, and that's amazing to me. We've put in a lot of work. I've put in a lot of work with Jenny just to kind of say, okay, not every doctor running their own schedule, having their own personality actually works very well. There has to be a consistent, kind of thoughtful way that you run a clinic. And actually my doctors are so much happier that they can just come, do the practice, focus on medicine, and have the staff that we work hard to raise up, to train, to provide, and to have in place. And our goal continues to be, let's beat the industry as far as how we pay our providers. We want to be generous and thoughtful, but also incentivizing how they, and have them have skin in the game. This is my best part of having other docs. This is me in Germany this last spring. It's good to take time away. And the fruit of working hard in business is that time that you should be able to be with family. And it was great to be able to go with some of my college kids to Germany and take a week and a half and know I didn't have to think about it. That's really, that work that we've been doing is so good to be able to do, and that doesn't happen unless you have built a staff to do that. People are your best investment. They certainly are, and your biggest challenge. Part of which is building a staff around that. So we have, when we first started, I have these wonderful pictures, and I couldn't include them all, although you can see I'm going on a trip down memory lane. Some of those were just my college girls, my daughters, being at the front desk. No medical knowledge whatsoever, but they were sharp, they could answer a phone, they could greet with a smile. And when you're small in a DPC, that's fantastic, especially if you can be basically the nurse and you can be the med dispenser. We've moved as we've had time and realizing that as physicians, as providers, your best time is focused directly with the patient, fully, not having to watch the message board coming through out of the corner of your eye, but really being there. And that staff has been an important thing for us. What we've gone to is realizing it's hard to find staff, it's hard to build staff, and so we've actually started our own medical assisting program. We have some seasoned medical assistants, but we don't have enough for all the care we've done, so we start by getting college students, one who's right here, who, again, sharp, know how to smile, can stand up straight, and are eager to learn. Many of them who are thinking about medicine and wanting to they come asking to shadow, and we're like, hey, you want to work instead? Let's push you to work. But being able to use the online training tools to make sure we're comprehensive, but also do training and help them to learn exactly how we would like to give medicine has been fantastic. So we use primarily a medical assisting staff along with what we call clinical floats. Yes, looking at my wife to make sure that I'm saying it right. This is a forgotten thing in medicine. The neurologists next door probably know this. Most of them probably own their building or practice. This has kind of disappeared over the last number of years. As a primary benefit of owning a practice is often the real estate that you live in. And we would encourage that, that owning it means that you have investment in it. It means there's a financial blessing that is good, it's right. But it also means that you are thinking hard about, and particularly in direct primary care, where you might be bringing a very different model. We've been able to now remodel 4 spaces. As we've gone to each one, learn what we would do differently. And also hone in on, boy, we really like having, so I'll give you an example. We bought this property a year and a half ago. It went from 3,000 to 9,000 square feet. We filled it out. It's kind of crazy. But what we did is went from one doctor's office, one consultation room that doubled as the exam room, to having 2. Turns out it really is helpful to have a second office that you can go back and forth, to let your medical assistant be able to help you with care, so that you can then focus on really doing the professional time that only you can do, like immunizations and things like that. And again, This is my son in sweat equity. I don't think I could keep my hands out of doing the demo work at least, but we've remodeled that. That pink is everything that we did to this existing office space to create a space that we wanted it to be. Much of which was this. Just welcoming and different and DPC friendly and like speaking to families that yes, you are wanted here and yes, you can come as a whole family and yes, we're not in a hurry. But we also don't call this the waiting room because we try not to keep people there because we can see people in time. And I hope you're doing that as we're direct primary care different. But it's marvelous to build spaces that are beautiful and tell people they're beautiful. And to be so different than the medical world. And I encourage you, that's one of the benefits of owning a space or leasing a space in a way that you then have ownership in what that looks like. How many of you guys have a dispensary or pharmacy in yours? Great. How are doing phlebotomy? Great. Immunizations? Okay. Lots of things that you can do as add-ons, none of which are critical to the practice of family medicine. And I mean that. One of the warning signs that we've seen at many of the DPC conferences we've gone to is doctors who started and they wanted to do it all. They wanted to have a big office and they wanted to have a massive procedure room and they wanted to have all the fancy accoutrement that goes with it. And they wanted to dispense meds, but they wanted to have like a wholesale for every med possible on site. It's truly, I've seen clinics do that. All of these things we've found at first there are many people in our communities that do it well already. And sometimes starting with them is fantastic. But these are also areas that basically, if you find that it can't be done better elsewhere, it's probably time to start it for you. So we found COVID was a great example. Phlebotomy was terrible during COVID, but we already had a very personal, very thoughtful way of approaching patients during that time and being able to do blood draws and just keep care going in a sense, rather than have to go through the rigmarole of challenges. And we've done the same with vaccination. We've done the same with many other things. But this is also the pitfall side. How much do you do? We know family docs that are doing the DPC model and they have an interest in an area and they think, man, what if I just added this? It might, or they're concerned about growth and they think, what if I added aesthetics? What if I began really offering, I don't think any of you are signing up to do chronic pain clinics through your stuff. No, you probably went into DPC to get away from that or to have some little more ownership in how many patients with that you care for. But the challenge with DPC is as you scale, you become more of what you're already becoming. What we've learned over time is the ability to kind of learn to say no, to be able to say, hey, one example, we're really solid in family medicine. We love family medicine. We have many patients that come to us and they want a more functional medicine approach. And there's a lot of different thoughts on how that fits in primary care. For us, massive lab panels and patient-directed healthcare without the physician being in the helping seat, the driving seat of that, it just doesn't fit well with what we're doing. And there are plenty of naturopaths and docs who are doing that kind of care. So being able to say, hey, we do labs on the basis of the doctor visit, and or like the phlebotomy, where we don't service outside labs that providers might want from other places. Hard to do, but whatever you don't say no to will grow big. One of those examples for us early on is we had a patient come who said, hey, I do allergy shots twice a week. We had, I think, 300 patients at that time, wide open schedule. We're like, sure, we could do that. Began seeing her twice a week. What we didn't realize is that she had to hang out for an hour and a half. We occasionally had to give her a shot of epi. She was getting tired of us, honestly, by the time we realized that offering something with that much patient contact just wasn't a fit for what we were. And really our best place is caring for people with long-term health, caring for people in urgent care situations. You can't be all things to all people. And it's good as you grow in direct primary care to be able to kind of come to that grips. And Jenny is my sounding board on that. She's better at no than I am. And I love her for it. you will, I hope you'll meet some of the ancillary services, and I mean that as far as what's growing up that is also cash price in our communities. Since we started direct primary care, we were like, okay, anybody have a cash price? And crickets when we first started. Cash prices, nobody does that. It's changing out there, and we're glad to see it. Cash price, one of the first was cash price ultrasound. Now we have 2 in our region, one in Moscow, one in Coeur d'Alene, and I think probably way more than that. Physical therapy that is really honed on cash prices and really thoughtful. We have one that we've helped start, who happens to be renting space in our clinic, just because it's such a synergy of care. This is one of the biggest ones, and I hope you hear about them or connect with them. They're sponsoring this, and many of the guys that are part of FMMA, what is that? Future Farmers? No. FFA, that's what that is. Many of the Veritas guys are also active on that. Why? Because they recognize that this is an important part of the developing alternative medical ecosystem that we need. And we've been really thrilled that right here in Moscow, and now they have places up here in Post Falls and Boise, and they're developing this really great cash surgical practice. It's just amazing. The care has been great. I've had family members get care that was 1/10 of what my wife got charged for her appendix across the street, and much better care. Really thankful for it. They have helped us in turn by helping us connect with the local hospital and actually get an amazing price for cash price x-ray. We were just on the verge of throwing an x-ray machine in and trying to train it. And like what I said, whatever you can't do better than someone else, maybe you should think about doing it if you see a need. We were just thrilled. Okay, we don't have to do x-ray just yet. Maybe we will in the future as we see an opportunity. People often ask us, and oftentimes it's our patients that have been with us for a while, did you guys change? Yeah, we have like staff and a different location 3 times and more doctors, and yeah, we have changed. And it is a challenge. I think even for me sometimes, that nostalgia of, oh, remember back when it was just you and I, babe? There's some sweetness to those moments that were really quite wonderful. And yet, I'm actually really quite glad that we've grown. It's been good for our community. It's been good for the way I get to give patient care. It's been great for what's going to, Lord willing, long outlive me, which would be an amazing thing. I started this just to have a job and to be able to stay in my town and to be able to actually see it grow and outlive my practice. That would be great. But it hasn't changed. Still do home visits. This was actually a picture of my first home visit. A little bit grayer and maybe a little softer around the edges. But it really has been still what do we get to do? We're actually even more clear that spending time with patients, being able to be really present has been what we've continued to focus in on. And those are the things that I would hold out to you. If you're wondering what DPC is, if you're trying to figure out what it is, or if you're trying to recall why did I go into this, for us it's the magic element that is missing in so much of medicine, which is time. Really just being able to take time with people directly and to be there when their health issue happens and to walk with them through it, and then provide that what is one of your most valuable assets, something you've worked hard on, professional experience. On top of that, icing on the cake of things that are so absent in medicine, the ability to actually see a doctor that knows you. We love doing our own after hours and weekends care. We don't get abused over it most of the time. And it's such an amazing thing to like, hey, I need stitches. Great, I'll meet you there in 15 minutes. Stitches done in 15 minutes, out the door. I mean, that's amazingly fun, and it still is. In a way, that doctor that you saw that was in the hospitalist was actually about 5 years away from retirement. I was burning out there too, and kind of thinking, no, can't keep working nights and weekends. And this has been actually very kind, and I hope to work for a while longer. But also not work all the time. This is many of my grandkids. We now have 8, and 2 of my daughters are dating, maybe. So we'll cut some questions here in a panel. Hopefully I haven't gone over. Not too bad. All right. We love what we get to do in DPC. As a family physician, that doctor that you saw that was carrying home the bucket, that's not my life anymore. And I hope that you've been able to, through your DPC practice, hone it in such a way. If you are an employer, this is the kind of doctor you want, a doctor that is happy with their job and is free to do what they have trained so hard to do, and to be able to do it in a way that is mutually beneficial both directions, and also like part of community, which is ultimately what we've been into medicine for in the first place. Thank you.